I know what you must be thinking right now. NBA All-Stars, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, James Harden all have this guy on speed dial. Look, I don't blame you if you're feeling a bit skeptical right now. I'm pretty sure I do not look like the guy that you expect to have trained many of the best basketball players in the world. I'm only 6 feet tall. I weigh about 180 pounds. When standing next to the NBA players I train, people think I'm either a super fan, or their lawyer, or their financial advisor, or their business manager, or their agent, or their brand strategist, or their publicist. Sometimes I get confused as their private security detail, I guess because my name's Ceydan, I have a bald head, so I think I'm some kind of former Israeli Special Forces guy. Sometimes I get confused as their stylist, which actually I don't really mind, but never, ever, ever their trainer. I didn't play basketball professionally, either in the NBA or overseas. I didn't play Division I college basketball. I didn't play Division II college basketball. I didn't play Division III college basketball. And if there was a Division IV, I can assure you I wouldn't have played that either. The last time I played organized basketball was, you ready for this, you guys? Back in high school, where I was the best player at my religious private Jewish school. And back then, my only dream was this, to see University of North Carolina coach Dean Smith, Duke University coach Mike Krzyzewski, both wearing yarmulkes, pacing the sideline, arguing over whose scholarship I was going to take. But as you can see, that never happened. And even though my family is Jewish, I can assure you this. We do not know the other famous Jewish families in professional sports. NBA commissioners Adam Silver and David Stern do not come to my house for Friday night Shabbat dinner. And I'm not the uncle, nephew, cousin, buddy, girlfriend, boyfriend, teammate, homeboy of anyone in professional basketball, which is usually how people get a job in that space. I do not have a PhD in exercise science from Stanford. Actually, my academic and professional background was, when I first started training athletes, was in law. Although I was an incredibly unhappy lawyer, desperate to find something in life that I love to do. And despite not having all these resources everyone thinks is so absolutely effing necessary to break into professional sports, I've been able to carve a niche for myself working with the best basketball players in the world because I was driven to live a life doing what I love to do. And to do so meant I had to do things and see things differently than everybody else. And part of that I credit to my really unusual background. I grew up in an immigrant home. My mom's from Israel, my dad's from Russia, and they devoted their whole life to teaching some form of Judaic studies, which is either Holocaust studies or rabbinical commentary, Old Testament or Hebrew literature, you name it. So I grew up in a religious home, and my traditional background pushed me in a traditional direction. So I did what any good Jewish boy was supposed to do. I checked the lawyer box. Because you know what? Growing up the way I did, there were not many options. I could become a rabbi, a cantor, a lawyer, a doctor, engineer, teacher, and accountant. What was I supposed to do? I didn't know there was such a thing as an entrepreneur or a screenwriter or a graphic designer or a producer or an ad agency executive. I never saw those people. I never met those people. I didn't even know those jobs existed. So I did what I was supposed to do. Look, I'm a really honest person. I'm in a room with lots of honest people, so I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I absolutely hated being a lawyer. I hated it from the first minute I cracked open my textbook in law school. But I did it because that's what I was supposed to do. And for years and years and years and years, I was searching for an answer going, oh my God, what am I meant to do? But when you grow up religious like I do, you tend to see answers in the form of prayer. So I remember I'd be sitting in my big lawyer desk, in my big lawyer office, in my big lawyer suit, staring at my big lawyer pile of crap that I had to do that day, right? And I remember just like talking to God and going, all right, God, you got to hook me up right now. What I need from you right now is I need a lightning bolt to impale itself on my desk. I need 2 yellow Post-it notes, and I need a blueprint for my future. So I'm a pretty patient guy, right? And I'd wait, but I never saw any lightning bolts. So I was like, let me change the negotiation around. It's like, all right, God, if you get me this awesome job, I promise you I'll contribute my salary, my next salary, to whatever charity you want. I'll be nice to my parents. And I would wait, and I'd wait some more, and I'd wait some more. But there was never lightning bolts. There were never yellow Post-it notes, and there were never blueprints. So to self-medicate from all this anxiety and frustration I felt every day, I'd go to the YMCA, and I'd run and swim until I couldn't run and swim anymore. And then one day I was leaving the YMCA, and I looked up, and I saw an ad for a 12 and under boys basketball coach. It was posted on the corkboard by the gym doors. I jotted down the number. I went back to my office, and I called right away, and I volunteered. But you know what? I didn't even think I'd be able to sneak out of the office because my amazing boss would cut my hours in half all the time. So he said to me I was inefficient. I couldn't bill the client that much. So I could bill 2,400 hours, but the bills would say 1,200. So what I did was I convinced the big boss upstairs that this was good for community development and business development. So I took the firm name and I stenciled it on the back of all the kids' jerseys. And I took it back to him. I said, this would be great for business development, don't you think? And he said, yep, it would be. So then I started volunteering coaching with these 12 and under boys team. Look, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never coached anybody. I never trained anybody. The last time I played organized basketball was back at this religious Jewish school where I was playing against other kids who wore yarmulkes. So I knew nothing, right? So I'm starting working with these kids, and I just gave them drills that I had created for myself when I was a kid. Some dribbling drills, some shooting drills, some passing drills, whatever crap I could think of, I gave it to those kids. A few weeks later, I get a phone call, and a parent says to me, "What are you doing with my kids?" And I was like, "Whoa, what do you mean, what am I doing?" And she said, "I've never seen my kid so engaged in anything in my entire life. My kid is hyper, my kid's a spaz, my kid is difficult, my kid gets attention, he's got ADD, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Look, lady, I have no idea. Maybe I just know more than the father who's coaching his son's team." So fast forward a few more weeks, we went undefeated. And I get a call from another mom. She says, "Make sure you're at practice an hour early." I was like, "Yes, sir, yes, ma'am," click. So I show up at practice an hour early, and lo and behold, what do I see? All these damn boys had pulled their allowance money to throw me a pizza party. And I thought, whoa, this is really, really weird right now. 12-year-old boys buy video games with their allowance money. They don't throw a pizza party for an adult who probably shouldn't be eating pizza in the first place. So then a parent pulled me aside and asked me, "What have you been doing? My kid is so focused." I was like, "Look, bro, I have no idea what you're talking about. Maybe I'm just a good teacher because I inherited a teaching gene from my parents." Fast forward several more weeks. I'm sitting in my office pecking this boring-ass memo I have to do in work, and all of a sudden the phone rings and I recognize the extension. I'm like, oh shit, not him again. It was the managing partner. No matter what I did, he always had a problem with it. And he had me on edge and second-guessing everything. I could be walking down the hall, and I would pause, and he said, "Idan, what time is it?" And I'm thinking, you mean Geneva, Tel Aviv, or New York? Like everything, I was second-guessing myself. And so he calls me into his office, and I kind of tiptoe in knowing that he's about to unleash hell on me, right? And he's holding my memo like it's like a flag on the 4th of July. And he asked me a question, and I answer. And he asked me another question, and I answer again. And he asked me the same damn question 10 times in a row, each time elevating his voice another decibel. And I was like, I'm done, bro. I'm out. I sprinted out of the room. I went down to my office. I typed up a letter of resignation, and I was gone. And I felt so relieved. It was almost like the worst-smelling 10,000 pounds of dog poop had finally been removed from my favorite pair of Air Jordans. And now they were crystal clear and beautiful, and I couldn't wait to wear them out. But where was I going to go? I was unemployed. So I move home, not sure what I'm going to do next. I'm scrambling. I'm floundering. I'm like, oh, my God, what's going to happen next? And I had to apply for jobs. But the last thing I wanted was a law job. So anything that smelled fun, I would send my resume to. If I saw an ad for a juggler at a circus, I would have applied for that job. But either I didn't get a response, or they would tell me my skills didn't match the job. In the meantime, my parents are chirping in my ear. They're like, "Idan, you got to go back to law. Law's what you know. That's where your experience is. That's your profession. Blah, blah, blah." Everything that a good Jewish parent would tell you to do, right? And I'm thinking, Mom, I can't do this anymore. But you need a 401k. You need a salary every 2 weeks. You need health insurance. So what did I do? I went back to law. But this firm was different. It was one of the most prestigious firms in the world. It was as if I had gone from the ghetto to the White House. They treated me well. They treated me with respect. They paid me well. I got to travel the world. But when I took all the makeup off of it, it was still the practice of law, and I absolutely hated it. But something miraculous happened when I was at that law firm. I ended up running into a couple kids that I used to play basketball with in the park. And now these days, these kids were taller, bigger, faster, stronger, and better. They were even playing basketball professionally overseas. One guy was in Italy, one guy was in France. And I said something to them that I don't even know where it came from. It was 1 trillion light years away from anything I ever intended or ever could have imagined. I said to them, "Come meet me in the gym." So I met them in the gym. And I gave them a bunch of drills that I had created for myself when I was a kid to learn how to play. I gave them some dribbling drills, some shooting drills, some defensive drills, some quickness drills, anything that I had thought of myself when I was a little kid. And they liked it, and they wanted to come back again. And they kept on coming back, and kept on coming back, and kept on coming back. And soon their friends were calling me, and their friends were calling me. And I was like, all right, cool. I'm still working in this law firm, but I'm carving out whatever free time I have. Early in the morning, late at night, weekends, summers, you name it, as long as I could escape the office for a little bit. And then all of a sudden, one day, an NBA player walks into the gym. And it was Steve Francis from the Houston Rockets. Look, I'll be honest with you, I was making up shit as I was going along. I had no idea what I was doing. I was a 0-star chef in a room with 5-star appetites. I was a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and these guys were thinking I was giving them surf and turf. I did not know what I was doing. I literally was making it up as I go along. Run, move, plant, jump. I didn't know what was going on, but for some reason they liked it, and I was like, I'm not going to argue. So fast forward a few years, right? I keep on working with these guys, and I'm having lunch with my mom. Meanwhile, I'm still volunteering and still working at this law firm. And my mom asked me in her really thick Hebrew accent, "Do you charge the players that you work with?" Look, in English, do you charge the players that you work with? That question hit me like a roadblock. I had no answer from my mom. My entire life had been making money doing what I hated. I could not imagine making money doing what I would otherwise do for free. It made no sense to me. And then my mom threw out this nugget of financial wisdom. And I'm going to tell you this. My mom and dad can quote every line in the Old Testament, every book, everything. My parents don't give financial nuggets. And my mom says to me, You're only worth what they're willing to pay for you. But my mom was right, but I didn't have the courage to raise that with the players because I thought the one thing that I finally figured out I liked would disappear along with them. So then my mom's words were kind of spinning in my head like a tornado. I was like, shh, all day long I was thinking about what my mom said. And maybe 6 months down the line, I got a phone call from a guy named Elton Brand, who at the time played for the Los Angeles Clippers. And Elton had just been cleared by his doctors to come back on the court because he had torn his Achilles tendon. And he asked me if I'd make time for him because he wanted to work with me before he went back to his team. And I said, sure. And at that moment, I mustered up the courage. And I said it as fast as I freaking could, hoping he wouldn't even hear me. I said to him, pay me whatever you think this is worth to you. Elton Brand could have paid me with 2 slices of carrot cake, half a dozen chocolate chip cookies, some rugelach, and some hot fudge, and I would have been so ecstatic, as long as I could have turned around and shown my mom that bag of sugar, right? So I ended up working with Elton, and at the end of the week, we were sitting down at this table, and he pushes this envelope across the table. And I'm like, no, bro, I can't. I opened it up. It was a check that had more zeros than I had ever seen. And I felt so uncomfortable. I was like, what are you doing, man? I can't accept this. I would have done this for nothing. And we passed it forward. He'd pass it back. I'd pass it forward. He'd pass it back. It was like we were in 8th grade geometry class playing paper football, right? Remember that day? Back and forth thing? So I didn't know what to do. But eventually, he insisted. He was like, you deserve it. You earned it. It's yours. I was like, OK. I took it. And it was interesting because that moment was very poignant in my life because it marked this long, circuitous, uncertain internship I had invested in myself. Finally, I had to develop an experience, a methodology, a skill set, something that I actually monetized, even if I didn't want to charge for it. And so several weeks thereafter, I ended up quitting law, and it's been a decade later, and I haven't even looked back. And so oftentimes I meet people, and they ask me about my life, and I tell them, look, I live the most unimaginable life you could ever even think. I've trained over 100 NBA players. I've trained over 15 NBA All-Stars. I trained celebrities like Adam Levine from The Voice and Eric Dane from Grey's Anatomy. I'm sponsored by shoe companies. I travel the world. I wrote a best-selling book. I get to speak to amazing people like you guys. I do everything that I like, and I make sure to do nothing that I don't like. And the reason I share with you this story, because in a room filled with entrepreneurs and people who want to revolutionize their industry, I got to imagine oftentimes you feel like an outsider, because I know I felt like an outsider a lot as well. And I'm still an outsider, even though I'm the best at what I do, because I don't look like those people. And so before I leave here today, I want to share with you a couple lessons that I learned, and maybe they will apply to your own life. First is I learned the importance of self-reliance. I didn't wear the professional jersey that's common to most people in professional sports. I didn't look like those people. I didn't speak like those people. I didn't come from the same place as those people. And I didn't have access to those beautiful palace doors by virtue of the fact that I played basketball, I had connections, right? Being an outsider was a blessing, and I learned that very quickly. I didn't have to regurgitate doctrine. I didn't have to follow custom that made no sense to me. I didn't have to ask permission. I didn't have to look over my shoulder. I didn't have to knock on doors begging for opportunity. I created my own magic. And along the way, I realized that if you really love something, you'll figure out a way regardless. Second thing is I learned to trust my intuition, because ever since I was a little kid, I knew I saw things and felt things differently than everyone else. And I know we didn't see the whole commercial here. It was a commercial I did with Carmelo Anthony. But in that commercial, there's a scene where I'm tossing a tennis ball at Carmelo while he's dribbling a ball. And whoever sees that commercial says to me, oh, yeah, that's for eye-hand coordination. Well, let me give you a little secret here. Since these guys have been 11 years old, they've developed their eye-hand coordination. It has nothing to do with it. When I saw a tennis ball, I saw opportunity, and I saw what I call sensory overload. So when you're playing in the NBA and you're dribbling a ball, there's so many damn things going on, you can't even think about the ball. You have a coach who's barking out offense. You have teammates who are incredibly selfish, asking you to pass them the ball. You have defenders trying to swipe the ball from your hand. There's so many things going on. Cheerleaders, announcers, fans booing and cheering, a million things. So every time I tossed that ball as hard as I could at Carmelo, I make him catch with his left hand or his right hand while we did a bunch of dribbling drills, because that tennis ball represented sensory overload. And as long as he could focus on that and ignore the ball, I knew he'd become a better ball handler. The other thing I learned as a kid is that I was really good with puzzles and I was really good with pattern recognition, but I never understood where could that apply in my life. And then one day I was working with Stephen Curry. I spent a lot of time with Steph, and we were doing some drills, and I thought to myself, this is where it works. So Stephen Curry is incredibly talented, incredibly kind, incredibly thoughtful, incredibly creative. But what he's not the tallest guy, the biggest guy, the strongest guy, the fastest guy. So I thought, how do I give him an edge? Well, what happens in the NBA is when they're really good defenders, they're not great defenders because they're athletic. They're great defenders because intuitively and subconsciously they realize that they can track human movement, and they understand that our movement works in like a bit of a pattern. So before I met Stephen, he was very traditional. Something as simple as this. He would take a layup with his right hand, and he'd always plant off his right foot, jump off his left, and release the ball with his right hand. But I realized that's too obvious, that's too easy. So what we did was we changed that pattern. We changed the velocity, the pace, the cadence in which he attacks the ball, the basket. We changed the foot that he jumps off of. We changed the rotation of the ball. All those things to disrupt his patterns. And lastly, I learned the importance of courage and conviction. So many years ago, I was in New Orleans working with Chris Paul. And Chris likes to work out very, very early in the morning to kind of race the sun because he likes to play golf with his brother later in the day. So we're about to start a workout, lacing up our shoes, and in comes through the big doors LeBron James. I didn't know LeBron was coming that morning. And I do what I always do. I call it passive disregard. I know lots of famous people, lots of rich people, lots of successful people, but we're in the gym together. We're peers, we're colleagues. I don't ask for autographs. We're the same level people. So I nodded my head and said to him, "You're late." So he tied up his shoes, and we got started. About 30 minutes in, we shifted the drills. Now look, LeBron James is the best player in the world and will go down as the best player in history. But I still say to him all the time, there's a lot of ways for you to get better, no different than all of us. So we started our workout, and I could tell that LeBron was favoring his left hand every time he dribbled it. And he would look down. And every time he did, I took my hand and I jammed it up to his chin. As he continued, I took my fingers and I would slap his chin often because I wanted him to remember the sensation every time he dropped his head. Now look, nobody touches LeBron James like that. Nobody confronts LeBron James like that. Nobody challenges LeBron James like that. But I felt it was my responsibility at that moment. Otherwise, I was cheating him and I was cheating myself. So whether it's LeBron James, or it's Kobe Bryant, or it's Dwayne Wade, or it's Stephen Curry, or it's James Harden, or it's Kevin Durant, or I said Carmelo, or Dwight Howard, or Blake Griffin, or Andre Drummond, or Kevin Love, or Amari Stoudemire, or all the NBA All-Stars that I've worked with, they're all very similar people. And this reminds me of one of my famous books, one of my favorite books in movies. It's called The Life of Pi. And in The Life of Pi, there's a character named Pi. And during the movie, he's on a raft alone with the lion Richard Parker. All these players I mentioned, they're all that lion. They're all Richard Parker. But if I didn't have courage and conviction and believe so much in my gospel, they would have eaten me alive. So as I leave here today, I hope some of my words kind of resonate with you, and I hope you take with you a few of the lessons I learned myself as an outsider. I hope you're self-reliant, and I hope you rely on your intuition. And also, I imagine there's going to be many moments where you're going to be alone on the raft with your own Richard Parker, and I hope you have courage and conviction. And most importantly, and I know someone's going to say something to me because I'm being a little bit vulgar and crass, but I don't know any other words in which I can say this best. And I tell this to my players all the time. If you really, really want to get where you really, really want to go, you need to be an absolute motherfucker in your pursuit. Thank you.